I would like to welcome everyone tonight to Newman City Council regular meeting for May 10th, 2016. The meeting will come to order. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and flag. Please remain standing for the invocation. And if everyone would stand now. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we pray. Our most gracious Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Guide us as we make decisions for this great community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Davis, Graham,
Here.
Candia,
Here.
Day,
Here.
Mayor Martina.
Present. Okay, 5 is declaration of conflict of interest. There being none tonight. We'll get into the ceremonial matters, and tonight we have a proclamation, Bike to Work Day. Lisa, you're up. I have to know one thing. Did you ride your bike here?
Of course.
And I did too. And I did too.
Did you?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't have a license.
What?
Yeah,
We're gonna have to fix that.
we have a terrible police department. They have the worst.
We need to come to these meetings more often.
Okay, proclamation of the Mayor of City of Newman. Whereas the month of May has been designated as National Bike Month by national, state, and local governments, and the week of May 16th through 20th, 2016, as Bike to Work Week. In order to promote greater public awareness of bicycle operations and safety education, and efforts to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities. I didn't even have glasses exam. Whereas there is a need to promote alternative forms of transportation such as walking and bicycling in order to reduce pollution, reduce America's dependence on fossil fuel, and improve the health and well-being of all people. And whereas bicycle commuting is an effective means to improve air quality, reduce traffic congestion, conserve energy, and improve personal health. And whereas bicycle commuting is an integral part of a multimodal transportation system as planned by the county, state, and local transportation governments. And whereas the education of cyclists and motorists as to the proper safety operation of bikes is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users. And whereas the City of Newman, Modesto, Oakdale, Turlock, and Patterson will host events in honor of Bike to Work Week, the week of May 16th, 2016, to increase public awareness for bicycling, educating the community about the benefits of bicycling for the transportation purposes, and encourage people to try bike commuting. Now, therefore, I, Bob Martina, Mayor, on behalf of Newman City Council, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, May 17, 2016, as Bike to Work Day throughout the City of Newman, and encourage all residents to recognize the importance of sharing our streets and highways with cyclists, and to participate in bicycling and walking activities to whatever extent possible during this week. And this
Thank
goes
you.
to you, young lady.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Comment?
Sure. I'll make this brief, but I'm sure you guys have seen these posters around town. Well, if not, you'll see more soon. I just brought a fresh batch. But we'll be out there on the 17th at 7 a.m. I'll be out harassing everybody, so feel free to come through. We'd love to see you guys, and I'm sure the community would love to see you guys as well. I know we get a lot of kids, and it's great to start them young and get them on the idea of sparing the air a little bit and reducing traffic. So I would love to see you guys out there. We're giving away $500 to your choice of your local bike shop. We're giving away Fitbits, custom bike bags, and some other awesome cool prizes. So tell everybody you know, and feel free to share any of our Facebook, Instagram posts, things like that to get the word out. We would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
How long did it take you on your bike to get here?
So long.
Anyway, no, Newman is a great city for biking. And it's a pleasure to bike in this town because, you know, there's not a lot of traffic, and it's like some cities that to me, it's just really difficult to ride a bike, but you have to be very careful.
You guys are one of my favorite events. I just have to say that. It's
Okay.
always a good time. Always when PD comes out too with the dog, that's my favorite thing. So tell them to come see me.
Thank you so much for coming. Number 7 is item from the public, non-agenda items. At this time, if anyone would like to speak before the council. There being none. 8 is consent calendar. Waive all readings of ordinance and resolutions except by title. B, approval of warrants. C, approval of minutes of April 26, 2016 meeting.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent calendar as is.
A second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 4 with 1 absent. 9 is a public hearing. Adopt resolution number 2016, next number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Good
Officer
evening,
Short.
Mayor, council members. Abatement notices for property maintenance were sent to several properties in accordance with ordinance number 95-4, chapter 2, title 8-2-3. This notice informs property owners of all nuisance abatement procedures, options, and their right to object at a public hearing. Final compliance survey was completed on Monday, and one of the properties on the list had been abated by the owner. The only one remaining is 1563 P Street, which is a vacant lot that's at the corner of Stanislaus and P. Would be staff's recommendation that staff approve resolution number 2016, next in number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance, and I'll be happy to answer any questions prior to the public hearing.
Any questions tonight? Thank you. Since this is a public hearing, I open it for a public hearing at this time. Did anyone make any comments they might like to make? Being none, I bring it back to the council for direction.
Move for the adoption of resolution 2016 in the next in number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance for the property identified.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 4 yes and 1 absent. 10 is regular business. Authorize the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatuses, SCBA, for the City of Newman Fire Department from Cascade Fire Equipment. Chief,
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to discuss item 10A on the agenda, which would authorize the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus for the fire department. The Newman Fire Department responds to multiple incident types where the atmosphere is known to be dangerous to life and health. During these incidences, the fire department's primary source of protection is a self-contained breathing apparatus. This essential piece of equipment protects the respiratory tract from harm due to hazardous materials, oxygen-deficient atmospheres, and products of combustion. There are 2 primary associations that have authority over monitoring the use and production of self-contained breathing apparatus. These authorities are OSHA and NFPA. Currently, the fire department is unable to meet the requirements of these authorities and no longer receives support from the manufacturer for our current breathing apparatus. This places the community at increased risk because the self-contained breathing apparatus are slowly becoming out of service. The authorities require that the fire department provide appropriate respiratory protection for the environment to each firefighter. If authorized, the fire department would be able to purchase 13 self-contained breathing apparatus, which would comply with OSHA and NFPA. The updated equipment would provide increased safety measures and firefighter efficiency, thus reducing community risk and harm. Another added benefit is the authorities maintain support of the equipment for up to 15 years. Because of this, the fire department would be able to establish an equipment replacement program. The fiscal impact would be budgeted over 5 years, starting with fiscal year 16-17. The annual cost would be approximately $21,024.89 for a total purchase amount of approximately $101,715.30. Furthermore, staff recommends that the City Council authorize purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus for the City of Newman Fire Department. I can answer any questions you may have.
These are all, they'll work the same as the county ones. They're all,
So yeah,
so you
all
can
the
enter.
fire chiefs across the county have been working on trying to create a standard. And with standardization, it increases the ability when we respond to incidents outside of our area or agencies that respond into our area, we can share resources that are already at scene. So this would give us the ability to maybe respond to Modesto, and we could actually use the cylinders they already carry on their apparatus. We can go to Patterson, use the cylinders they already carry. And what a cylinder is it's actually the part where the air is compressed into. That's just one example. But yeah, it would bring us up to the
Standardized.
standard that the rest of the county is using.
Perfect.
What's the normal, Chief, what's the normal life of one of
So
these?
the life expectancy actually kind of correlates with the standard, and that's about 15 years. And what happens is, and this is where we're at right now, is that ours are from 1997, so we've hit that mark where the manufacturer says we just can't support it because we no longer produce equipment to repair them, and NFPA requires additional safety measures. So a few measures we don't have would be like a heads-up display, a buddy breather system. Our SCBAs actually lack that. So to get even close to compliance and just to get us to a standard where we meet the minimum is probably about 3/4 the price we pay for new.
And this is a budgeted item.
I did speak with our finance director, and we're actually going to carry a loan through Patterson. He might be better to answer that, but I think
Yeah, so we're gonna fund it over the next 5 years. It'll be in the next year's budget. The way it is we get to place the order now to get the equipment. The invoices are not gonna come in until next year, after our August cutoff. So we won't be able to post that invoice back to the prior year.
Okay.
So we're gonna start making payments with the next 16, 17 year.
Right.
And from 5 years there forward.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I move that we authorize the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, for the City of Newman Fire Department from Cascade Fire Equipment.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, 4 yes and 1 absent. Thank you very much, Chief. Regular business, B, presentation regarding potential Christmas tree replacement options.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This was a conversation we started last month about the Christmas tree and where we go from here. We do have a local, Mr. Ed Perry, who is a master arborist, and we put a very nice letter. As he retired from UC Cooperative Extension, we've actually put in a nice little article about him. So he's here to talk to you about a couple different options and the things that need to be considered when selecting a Christmas tree. We have 4 potential live Christmas trees. There are different species that you can choose from, and there's pros and cons to each one of those. And then we'll talk a little bit after we've done. We can talk a little bit about cost and long-term planning for that. So I'd like to invite Mr. Perry up to the stand there, and then he'll lead the conversation with you.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. I'm here at the invitation of Prefecto Milan, Parks Director, and Michael Holland. I'm here to discuss the potential live Christmas trees for the city of Newman. As Mr. Holland mentioned, there are 4 candidates that we'll talk about this evening. Just a little bit about where I'm coming from in terms of making these suggestions. In my tenure with the University of California, one of my main activities was problem solving with arborists, municipal and private arborists, with nurseries, with parks departments, landscape practitioners, folks who are using trees and plants in the landscape. I suppose you could say that I was the doctor in that case. The animals have the veterinarians, and the landscape industry, at least in this county, it's not true with all of the counties, but in this county, I responded to folks' requests for information about sick trees. And in 36 years, no one ever invited me out to look at a healthy tree. They always wanted me to look at sick trees. So I saw a lot of sick trees in those years and tried to diagnose their problems. And so I got a good look at a number of species that exist and they're planted in this county, and their weaknesses, their strengths and weaknesses, and got to know a lot about what species actually do pretty well, very well. And that's what I'd like to talk about this evening, is we'll just talk about pros and cons of some of the species that grow in this county, that have grown in this county, and for you to consider as a living Christmas tree for the plaza or possibly for the turf area out near the highway. So, before I begin, I want to acknowledge Mike Meyer, who put together these slides for this evening. And thank you, Mike, because this really helps in this presentation. So, to begin, we're going to talk about the first one on my list is a pine tree called Mondel, or Afghan Pine. And it's the only pine in the group of four. It's a native of southern Russia, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Comes from a very harsh environment, native to a very harsh environment, and evolved in that type of environment. And because of that, it does well under our very dry, hot conditions. And that's why I mentioned it in the first place. It's a tough tree. This is a young specimen. Behind it is a little older one. It has a fairly upright pyramidal shape. And it grows fairly rapidly. The literature says 30 to 50 feet, but I don't think that's really could be expected in this area, maybe 40 feet and about a 30-foot spread or so. So it gets to be a pretty sizable tree. Very drought tolerant, very tough drought tolerant, tolerates poor soil conditions, does not tolerate wet soil, so good drainage. It prefers to be just pretty much mostly dry, in fact. So that's a young one. This one shows one that's a little more advanced in age. You do see that it takes on a rounder form as it matures, and finally, this may not be everyone's perfect view or example of a Christmas tree shape, but nevertheless, it would suit that need. This one could stand possibly a little shaping and pruning, but it's not something you do on a regular basis with a lot of these trees, and that is manipulate them. If they're growing properly, they take on a fairly good shape. This one, I would say, is only useful where it's going to be, where the irrigation is going to be monitored very carefully. It can't stand to be overwatered. So this is Mondel or Afghan Pine. May make one point here before I go on. Understand that most of these conifers, in fact, the ones that I'll be talking about, are propagated from seed. And because of that, they will have genetic variability. If they are propagated from cuttings or vegetatively, like all of the millions of almond trees you see, those are all done from by budding, and so they're going to be uniform in their genetic makeup. And so they're going to be of the same size, the same quality, they will produce similar crops. They're propagated vegetatively by taking cuttings and by budding and so forth. These guys are propagated from seed, and seed, have characteristics of their parents, which, in this case are all wind-blown pollen. So you're going to get variation in growth habit, in size, in shape, and form. And that's something to take into account and something to keep in mind, that just because you see a perfectly shaped tree of one of these species may not be the same shape you get from the one that you end up planting. So that's an important thing to understand.
Mr. Perry, right here. Just real quick, before we at each tree, could you talk maybe a little bit about needle droppage and or maybe a pollen release that may be associated with any of these trees, just for?
They do have, this one has flowers that are, the needles are in clusters of 2, in bundles of 2, and there is some needle shedding of all of these trees. There is needle shedding, and which would require cleanup for instance, in an area like the Plaza, where they're dropping pollen. Yes, there is some pollen shedding, and some people are sensitive to that, but I don't think it's a serious problem with most of these species. Yeah, but there's definitely needle shedding. See, there's really no true evergreen tree. Evergreen just means that they're not deciduous in that they don't drop their leaves as the days become shorter and go dormant. That doesn't mean that they don't drop leaves. They drop needles or leaves because those old needles have to be replaced, and they're replaced by the new growth. So there's always some shedding of needles. Usually in spring, as the new growth comes out, there could be a heavy shedding of foliage. Okay, so the next one I wanted to talk about is, this is blue Atlas cedar or Atlas cedar. This one is native to the Atlas Mountains of Algeria and Morocco, so again, kind of a harsh environment. These trees, sort of that blue cast, they become very tall, stately trees in the landscape. Very picturesque kind of tree. They can get to be fairly tall, 40 to 60 feet, with maybe a 40-foot spread at full maturity. And then they tend to open up. The branches are very upright, and again, there's a significant amount of genetic variability in these trees. So you see some that are more open, but they generally develop a strong central leader in their younger years, and then as they age, some of those lower branches may begin to open up, so that you get a more open tree, but very, very stately in a landscape. This again may not be the ideal Christmas tree, but it is a conifer that has been used for that purpose. Again, because of its size, it needs to be located in an area that has room to grow. This next one I like very much, Colorado blue spruce. And blue spruce, as the name implies, or the Colorado blue spruce, as the name implies, is a native of the Rocky Mountains of America. Comes from a rather cool environment. They're known, the native range is everywhere from Colorado to Wyoming, but they've been used in many other locations throughout the country where the conditions exist for ideal growth, which would be well-drained soils, good irrigation. They are not necessarily happiest in areas of high temperature. They will grow for a number of years. I wish I could tell you where to go see a mature one, because I've not seen many. I've seen some beautiful specimens that get up to a certain age, and then they tend to burn out. So I think I look at these as a shorter lived tree for this area, but still a beautiful tree in their younger years, and as they're growing, again, this is in their native environment, so you would expect them to look beautiful. It has a bluish cast and a very beautiful pyramidal traditional Christmas tree form.
When you say they start to die out at a certain age, what age is that usually?
Well,
a guesstimate.
Based on what I've seen,
Yeah.
8, 10 years. I guess I've not seen one too much older than that. I'm sure they exist. I've just not run across them. City of Modesto planted one when they were developing the Red Lion Hotel in Modesto, across from the county buildings, and it was a beautiful tree and grew beautifully for several years in a lawn area, and then it began to decline, and that got people really excited, and so I was out with the city arborist, and we poked around and dug soil, and we couldn't find any disease or real problems for its decline, except that it apparently had reached its limits in terms of tolerance to the environment. And so it began to burn out and died. Yeah. It's really a beautiful tree when you can get a mature one like this. I wish we could, because if we could, you would see many more of these in the landscape. I assure you, people would want this tree all the time. And I do see them. I see small ones in some landscapes in and around Stanislaus County. Okay. So that's a Colorado blue spruce. And then the final one that I need to talk about is the one that you all have experience with already, and that's the Deodor Cedar. Mr. Candia smiling there because I know the one that's there in place now is had its problems, and there's. But I would be remiss not to mention this one again, because the Deodor Cedar, by the way, is also known as a California Christmas tree by many nurseries, and it's used by many cities as their focal point for a Christmas tree. City of Turlock uses a Deodor Cedar. Memorial Hospital, there's a Deodor Cedar that they decorate. City of Modesto had one for a number of years in a downtown area in a little triangle that they had a large mature one and decorated every year for Christmas. And then they developed that area and took the tree out. But so it is used. I spoke to, just to not have my own ideas on this, I spoke to a couple of nurserymen in this county, and one in Turlock, one in Riverbank. These folks, the nursery owner-operators, both of them over 40 years in the nursery industry, in the nursery business, know their plant materials, know their trees. When I asked them for their opinion of a living Christmas tree for a city, without prompting, they both immediately said Deodor Cedar, because that's what they're used to telling people and what they're used to seeing. Many of the big nurseries in California sell them as California Christmas trees. Monrovia, Antelope Valley Nursery, some big ones. Now, it does have the drooping branches, which it may not be as ideal for folks when they think about decorating a Christmas tree. They do droop. The top of the tree, as you know, has a nodding habit. It doesn't stick straight up. It has a very strong central leader, but that leader tends to nod. And so it's not that nice, straight, stiff leader that you can put a star or an angel on at Christmas time. But it does grow as a very strong central leader. There's a more mature one. This is a little more open. You can see, even in these, the variability in form as we went through those pictures. So this is Deodor Cedar. Very tough tree also. It's native to western Himalayas and Pakistan, parts of Afghanistan. So it comes from a very harsh environment as well. And it tolerates our environment. This thing, there are many examples in this town of very old Deodor cedars. Now, they don't all look great because they're big and they've lost a lot of foliage. Sometimes people will begin to prune them because they are afraid of breakage and toppling, and so they start pruning them, which is not the right thing to do because they are naturally strong as they are, and they are built for high winds in the environment. So if they're growing in a space where they can have lots of room to grow root system, they rarely blow over, at least in our deep soils. So this is Deodor cedar. Again, the one we have here has had some unfortunate kinds of things happen to it. But I would urge you not to consider what happened to that tree as the characteristics, true characteristics of Deodor cedar. I mean, there have been things happen to it that has taken away its ability to look as it should. So, those are very briefly sort of a rundown of the 4 species that I wanted to give you. I'd be happy to talk about any of these that you'd like. I think we had an example of the one, yeah, okay. So, there. Oh, there it is. So I guess this is an example of a tree that would be the perfect Christmas tree. This is the perfect Christmas tree. You see how beautiful it is, and it's all lit up, and it's got ornaments. And the thing about this tree is it doesn't need water. It has no pests or diseases. Michael and my
This is a hard sell.
Yeah.
We want to make sure you had all the options.
This is option, the last option, which is the most durable option you can find. And this is an artificial tree, as you know. So anyway, that concludes what I have to say. And thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to try to answer questions regarding these species.
Ed, I had just one question. If
Yes,
we
sir.
were to buy a tree, what could we expect as far as how big a tree it might be and still be able to transplant it without any problems?
Well, you can purchase, if you work with a nurseryman, for instance, and there are wholesale nurseries that I think would work with you. Probably the large, I can say this, Mr. Mayor, that any tree, believe me, any tree, regardless of size, can be transplanted. I've seen 100-year-old oak trees transplanted. Pretty hard to believe, but it can be done. That's not practical. From a nursery standpoint, a 36 or a 48-inch box tree is a pretty good sized tree.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good sized tree. Some people prefer to start a little smaller because the root system is not reduced in any way. Root systems are very important, and I would urge purchasing a high-quality tree that has been grown in a reputable nursery. It makes a big deal it makes a big difference how they're handled as they grow, as they're shifted from one size container to the next. If that is not done properly, there could be many root problems that develop. And that's the key to a good, healthy, long-lived tree is a healthy root system when it's planted. People only sometimes look at the top, and it's what's happening below ground that's probably more important in a young tree than what's happening above. A root system is extreme, and a good nursery will know that and develop a tree that has a good root system that doesn't have circling roots or kinked roots and those kind of problems, which results from being bound too tightly for too long. So, yeah, so you can get 48-inch box, pretty big tree.
Given the restricted environment that we have,
Yes.
which of these trees best fits that environment?
Well, if I had, for a limited time, probably the Colorado blue spruce because it's so tight and compact, and it would fit that circle, that circular planter very nicely. But then you may be looking at a limited lifespan. The Deodor Cedar would fit that for quite a few years, would do well in that space. The others, the Mondel pine would also, but I think you may not like the form as well as you do the Deodor Cedar. I mean, as far as a Christmas tree shape, it lends itself to decorating. And speed of growth, too. The Colorado blue spruce is pretty slow, comparatively. Slow in growth. Deodor Cedar is faster, much faster.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We can't thank you enough for
Okay.
coming
Well,
to us and
You're welcome. You're
educating
welcome.
us as far
You're
as the
welcome.
Christmas tree.
I'm sure, Michael Holland, I know has some ideas about how to proceed and some suggestions, and,
Yeah, well, we thank you for your expertise because we really appreciate your thoughts.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
So, Mr. Perry and I had just had a little bit of conversation earlier, and so what we're searching for from the council is some kind of direction on where you would like to go with the Christmas tree and the species. If you were to identify a species that you like, I could work with Mr. Perry. We could identify a nurser and let him know that, okay, come January of 17, early February of 17, we plan on replacing our existing tree with whatever species you decide. Then that would give them adequate time to help one find an appropriate species, as Mr. Perry identified, excuse me. Each individual tree is different, just like humans are different. They have different parents, so finding the right individual tree is going to be just as important as not only finding it, but also how it's raised with its root system, as Mr. Perry identified. So, if you feel comfortable tonight identifying what that species is, we can start working towards finding a nurser that would help us identify and find an appropriate tree, so that way when January, February comes around, it's already been trained, we're ready to go. This will be the last year of that tree, pull it out. It'll have a whole year to grow. Probably towards the end of the year, we'd, obviously work with Mr. Perry and identify whether or not we want to place anything on that tree the first year or not, and then come back the second year and possibly have a decorated tree the second year, depending on, again, how it grows the first year. With that being said, we're not looking at an inexpensive tree. A 36 to 48 inch box is going to be an expensive tree. It's not unrealistic to think that it's going to be anywhere from probably $6,000 to $10,000 to remove that tree, re-prep the site, and put a new tree in it. So we're just here to, again, provide any direction or respond to your direction. We did provide the artificial, and again, I just bring it out because if you ever want the most perfect tree, the only way to ever get the most perfect tree is you buy the artificial. Whatever we decide, I'm telling you right now, whatever you decide as a council, it's going to be a challenge to find that perfect one that fits each of your vision of what that Christmas tree is going to look like. But again, as staff, we'll do whatever direction you provide us.
The thing that Mr. Perry said that I find very interesting is the California Christmas tree. There was a lot of recommendations, even though we had a problem with the California Christmas tree in that location. It's something we should look at because it's recommended by different nurseries, and it's just, we can't sell that one short because of what happened to this one out here.
Man, I think you're right. And it comes down to the individual tree that was selected. And to be honest with you, we were so involved with the development of the site, we didn't actually work with a nurser to pick the most perfect tree for us. That was something that the contractor did, and he may have just ordered it and just said, hey, give me a 36-inch box, and they threw a 30. We don't know how it was handled prior to that. We do know that there were mistakes that were probably made in our rush. In the excitement of having a new plaza, we probably put too much on the tree the first year. It was unstaked, it accidentally got toppled over there, and so now we're missing a top. There are several missteps that have occurred with this particular tree, but that does not mean that species is not the correct species. So. But again, we're eager to hear what your decision is. And he did identify the two in the blue spruce. While it's a beautiful tree, I think you caught on. The reality is, in 10 years, you're probably going to take that one out and invest time and energy and money into putting a new one out there. Because traditionally, the lifespan of a tree like that in this area, even in a environment where at the Central Plaza Hotel was probably more of a grassier environment, more conducive and for the roots, it still only lasted maybe a decade. So here we're really talking about something that's kind of surrounded by the concrete reflection and some winds and stuff.
Comments?
Well, I'd say we need to look at either, if we're going to go decide whether we're going with the real tree. And if that's the case, the only option is the one that we have, not the one that we have, but that same breed. Or a fake tree.
So, if you're serious and you want to contemplate the practicality of an artificial, we can bring this back to you another time. We can go back and get information in terms of what height could be achieved in that diameter of a space, and what a cost would be for you, what a life expectancy could be attributed to an artificial tree. As you know, with an artificial tree, at sometimes they are going to have to be replaced as well. But if that's something that the council wants, we as your staff can go back and get some of that information and bring that before you if you want to consider that. Otherwise,
The tree that we have now, planted and raised properly, if it was pruned and kind of groomed, can we get the look that we want from it? I mean, is there much to it? If it's taken care of as it's growing, does that make sense?
it is. And what I heard Mr. Perry say is, again, genetics play a big part in what the final outcome of the shape of the tree is going to be. With each of the species that he identified,
Right.
not much pruning really takes place in there. You can nip and tuck, I guess is a good word to say that he probably used on there, but it's really just about the environment and the luck of the lottery draw of the species you decide. But by working with the wholesaler, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Perry, by working with the wholesaler and helping him help us to find an appropriate looking tree that's going to go in that particular space, and having them maybe groom it in terms of going from a 36 to a 48, or helping us find a good root system in there, our chances are greatly improved that it would fill out that box and grow in a more standard way than what we are experiencing in our current location.
And by buying a larger tree in a larger box, are you more able to see what the end result of that tree is going to be as an adult?
But the people at home would prefer.
Yes, in answer to Councilman Graham's question, the more mature the tree is that you plant, the better idea you have of its ultimate form. I think all of the Deodor cedars, like most of the others, will have a strong central stem or central leader, regardless of what other characteristics they may have. Now, some may have branches that are a little more open. They may be a little more open in stature, a little tight, or some may be a little denser. But all will have a fairly strong central stem, and that's critical for a Christmas tree, obviously. That's what keeps it conical, is this apical dominance is what it's called, and it will inhibit the growth of side branches as it grows up. So you do get this stair-step effect as you go up the tree. It will vary a little bit in characteristics based on its genetics, but I think in general you can expect that you're going to have a very upright tree, but it does help. I mean, I would want to have a selection of the tree that is going to be ultimately planted, and that could be done in the nursery right from early on, by looking at the numbers that they have out there in smaller containers and choosing one that looks like it has strong potential, and then using that one as the tree that's moved up.
I think the biggest thing is we want something that's traditional Christmas tree and
Yes.
doesn't end up looking like a bush again.
Yes,
Because the bush look just
No.
doesn't go very well.
but again, that bush look was achieved when the central leader was removed.
Correct.
And when that happens, then there's a universal response to that, regardless of species, and that is all of the branches nearest the cut, below the cut, will attempt to become central. And so you get this growth of, this ragged growth that no longer resembles the original tree. And so you get a more rounded. I suppose if you were willing to really work at this and give it time, you could train another side branch upward and finally achieve the look, but this would take time.
Right.
This would take time, and it's better done with a younger tree. So, yeah, that central leader has to be maintained, very, very important.
As this tree matures, is it possible then to be able to place a star or something at the top of it? Is the top of it strong enough to maintain that?
Oh, I think so. I think the top of, regardless of that nodding habit, it's a very strong, it's a very strong stem. It may be limber, but it's used for that purpose
Okay.
by many people,
Right.
by cities and so forth, yes. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure how they attached it out here, probably at the side or, I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
I
they
think
did
they're
that.
using a pole down the side and tie it.
Oh, I see.
I
They
think
used
they-
the pole.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's essential that that leader not be broken or cut.
Any further questions? Thanks again.
Well, Mike, can we look at, I guess, the overall price to replace it with a new, to me, this is just my thought, a new Deodor, or however you pronounce it?
Deodor Cedar, yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna
and-
tell you, just based again, just early conversations with Mr. Perry and I, and it's gonna probably be in the 6 to 10 range.
Right.
Yeah.
But can we also get a quote kind of on the fake Christmas trees?
Yeah, for a fake, about 23 footer, you're looking at, they're in the 10 to 12 range. And, yeah.
Along with that, though, you have to look at, what are you gonna do with that box
Correct.
In the summertime.
for the balance of the year?
Correct. And that's correct. We have some thoughts on that, but that wasn't the direction that was given last
I
time, so we didn't develop those thoughts.
I'm not a fan of the fake tree, so.
I'm not either, really.
I'd go to replace the bush with this Deodor Cedar.
A new Deodor, same species, just.
I love the blue spruce. I love that tree,
That's not gonna work.
but it's not gonna work.
But you know, Michael, you said something, I think that, you said this tree that was picked out here was probably not the right tree. You know, I don't know, and it just, if we pick the right tree, it's a tree that has potential, I think that it's gonna be a
Yeah.
nice tree. I think that's the key, is getting it from a nursery that has a nice tree.
And making
And
sure
healthy.
whoever plants it does it the right way.
Yeah, and so here's kind of the program going forward. If you go ahead and identify what species you'd like, obviously, we'd work with Mr. Perry to identify a wholesaler that we could probably go out and make some selections from and work with them in terms of the care and the maturation of a tree that would ultimately end up there. During the removal and the planting of a new tree, we'd like Mr. Perry to help us and oversee in that process, just to make sure, as well as keep an eye on it with us for the first couple of years. Those are the series of probably missteps and lack of care and tenderness, I guess, if you will, that we didn't provide the first tree, that we would give this second tree the better chance of being the vision that you have as a Christmas tree.
Do you think of blue spruce, this is just a question, in a different environment, like, let's say if you lived in the Midwest, where you get, your 4 seasons, I'll bet that tree probably does last longer than 10 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's this environment out here that,
My grandparents had one in Redwood City that was 20,
Yeah,
30 years old when we left there.
yeah. We had one in our house in Indiana, when I
Yeah.
was growing up as a kid, and it was like 30 feet tall.
Yeah.
Cooler environment, though, more conducive to that. Yeah.
Correct.
They're beautiful. Yeah, they are. They're gorgeous. Oh, well. We live in the desert.
Are we on agreement then for a real tree?
Yep.
Yeah, I
That's
think
my- that's
so.
my vote.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
then,
Yeah,
we only have one tree to move forward with.
yeah.
So, if I'm hearing direction from the council, what I'm hearing is we're gonna go ahead and move forward, replace our existing tree with a new Deodor Cedar,
Yes.
following, Christmas of 16, so in January, February, whatever period, Mr. Perry believes is the appropriate time, we'll remove that tree and get a new tree established in that particular location. In the meantime, we'll try to start working with nurses in the area that could help us to identify an appropriate tree itself, a singular tree, to help us start developing it for that location. So that's a cost that we'll put into the 16-17 budget under the city council level. So when you approve your budget, you can be assured that those costs associated with it will be in there, so.
Well, we're not gonna, we would take this tree that we have here and like plant it in one of the parks or something.
We'll have to see the cost associated with pulling it out and putting it in another location, but if we can, we definitely will.
Put in Bob's front yard.
With your help.
Yours.
Okay, so it's the action item. Do we have a motion that we'd like to proceed with?
I think we just direction, right?
You need a
Um,
motion?
You gave direction.
We gave direction, yeah, and then
Okay.
the motion will ultimately come in the
Okay.
budget when you
Okay.
spend the money.
That's fine.
Thank you, Ed.
It's good, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
sir.
You have to know how important that Christmas tree is to this community. I mean, it really, we're tired of Gustine beating us out. You know? Well, theirs is real, but it's gonna die because it's, every year they go out and buy a tree and put it up. And,
Yeah.
yeah, but anyway. Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 11, item from District 5 Supervisor, County Supervisor, Mr. Jim D. Martini.
Good evening, Mayor Martina, council members. So you have a new city attorney tonight. So. Anyway, I've seen him somewhere before. So anyway, I just have very little for you tonight. You know, we've been working on the county budget to try and get that finished up. And we're working on public safety restoration, water policies, and staffing levels. So that's just about wound up, and that's been taking the biggest part of the time that we have. As far as the task force, that meeting is coming up next week on May 19th. That will be at the Gustine City Hall this time. And at that time, I think we will make the final decisions on the health summit of what the program is actually going to be. It will be on August 25th, unless that's a problem for you at the West Side Theater, which we haven't heard that would be. Way Out is going to be in Gustine. And also of note, the West Side Walks are set up to begin on June 1st. I have contacted the high schools. Everything is set for that as we work on Wednesday nights and walk around the track from 6 to 8 for exercise. I think we'll have a little bit better program this time. I talked to the superintendents of the school and the groundskeepers, and I think we'll get a little bit more participation this year. So we're ready to go on that and the health summit. So anyway, that's all I have tonight, unless you have any questions about anything.
Any questions?
No. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, item 12, items from the city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor. We continue to be on schedule to have the public hearing for the Community Facilities District that would fund a community pool. That's, as you know, that's advertised for June 14th meeting. And then that's really your kickoff into putting it on the November ballot. Last night, the mayor and I went to the school district meeting, and while it was not an agendized item, we spoke about our measure moving forward and what we thought the impact of them putting a measure on and competing against ours would be. Ultimately, while they couldn't make a decision and there was very little discussion, I left leaving with the thought that they're going to be moving forward with the reauthorization bond measure in the November ballot on the same ballot as us. We have 66 2/3% that we need to get in order to achieve this. We shared with them, that this is an important project for the community, that when our members of our council were canvassing in November of 14 for the election, that was a recurring item that they constantly heard. So, we've invested a ton of money in terms of getting this to this point, and that we are moving forward with it, and we hope that they could get behind it. So we'll see how it goes, but it's not going to deter us. This is what we are hearing the community wants. We're going to put it in front of them and see if we get the appropriate turnout in terms of an electorate and getting the 66 2/3 to get it approved. So, but it's not going to be without hard work. I know Ms. Butero, who sat on your community committee, is forming a PAC to help run an election campaign to help support that. So if you're interested, let us know. We can provide her your email address to get notices to all those meetings. From a city's perspective, myself and Ms. Ocasio will be working on an educational format. So when we go out and speak to public groups about it, it's really an educational about what the measure is all about. We cannot advocate for any particular one, so it's really just an educational one and answer any questions that they may have. So, speaking of elections, so we have council candidates. The seats really don't become open in terms of identifying who's going to run for council until mid-July. So I know Mike has been putting packets together. He's got a long road to haul in terms of not only getting the measure and everything on there, because we have to go down and record documents, but also getting packets ready for any members of the public that would like to put their name into the hat in terms of a city council position. So, but you can look forward to those, and those will be available starting in mid-July, but we'll bring more information to you as that becomes available. Youth soccer signups are starting up. I know it's a busy time. That's one of our most heavily used programs from a city perspective that we run. I think last year we had over 400 youth that participated in our youth soccer program, so that's a very good program for us. And then just lastly, I'd like to thank Lisa for coming out today and invite everybody to the Plaza on Tuesday, May 17th for Bike to Work Day, Bike to School Day. Get out and come out and see it. Commute Connections does an excellent job of not only this Bike to Work Week, but also providing a website that links people together if they're commuting to certain areas. So please go to their website, Commute Connection, and see what they have. And otherwise, hopefully see you on your bicycles on Tuesday, May 17th.
I thought this was allowed bicycles.
I ride my bicycle every day, Michael.
Excellent. Well, write it down. They'll have snacks. Get your snack before you head off to
Have a
work.
bicycle work.
Good.
So-
Right. 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I'll be there. Will you?
I'm about 4:15. I'll be there about 4:15. Hopefully you'll.
I just show up at 4 to see who's there.
Have you seen Lisa's bike? It's got 4 wheels on it.
It's red.
So that's all that I had, Mayor.
Thank you. Lieutenant,
I have nothing new to share with you tonight.
Good evening. I just wanted to let the council know that the Skate Plaza project has begun mobilization. The fence is up. Our inspectors are coordinating with the contractor staff for inspection times and check-ins and, ticket tags and all that fun construction stuff. So we're excited to see that project moving. The environmental comment period is open for the T Street annexation project. It's a little 3-acre project. So we'll be accepting comments through June 10th. All the documents are available on our website and have been distributed to the appropriate parties. And the adopted housing element was submitted to HCD. Work has begun on the elements related ordinances, and we plan on bringing those before the council around June. I'm happy to answer any questions.
any questions? Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Lou?
Treasurer's reports for April have been completed and are in your inboxes, and we're also on schedule to have the budget completed by June 1st and printed and distributed out to you, so you can get an early look at it.
Very good, thank you. Vincent?
Yeah, good evening, City Mayor and council members. Just 2 items. Sherman Parkway, Sherman Ditch. Recently, we removed 13 big willow trees, as well as 3 big pine trees. The Public Works Department will continue to work on those the projects. And the state just announced that the emergency water conservation regulations that will be extended up to January 2017. Even though we got some rain, but mostly the Northern California. That's why the state want to continue to work on those water conservation effort. That's all I have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kate, Kate?
Nothing at this time. Any questions?
Thank you. Casey, anything tonight?
Nothing. Thank you, Ed, for the presentation. It was helpful.
Mr. Perry, thank you, sir. We appreciate the input.
Nick?
Same thing. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well,
Other than that, I'm done.
okay, I'd like to say the same thing, Ed. You know, it's fantastic having someone like you that can lead us in the right direction. We greatly appreciate it. And we're looking forward to your help. We need a consultant like Mr. Ed Perry to lead us in the right direction and get the right tree.
Well, you know, we're very fortunate to have someone like Mr. Perry in our community. Not very many communities have that, and not only in California or Stanislaus County, but across the United States. So it's good that we're able to have this resource available to us. And again, I'd like to, along with the council, thank Mr. Perry for helping us.
And the last comment, tomorrow night, there's a mayor's meeting. It'll be all the mayors from Stanislaus County, and I'm sure that marijuana is going to come up as far as, I think what they want to do is, of course, the general consensus so far is try to have everything on the same page. What I need from the council is direction, because I don't want to go there and not represent you. And I think as far as any dispensaries in Newman, I don't think any of us want that. And I think that's something that I would present to them. I can't think of anything else. But that in itself, I think the larger cities, it makes sense. And a city like Newman, it does not make sense. And so I just wanted to, any feelings you have about marijuana would like me to take there. But right now, there seems to be a consensus. They want to bring everyone together. And bringing us all together doesn't mean there's going to be a dispensary in each town.
Right.
And that's I think, the thing we want to
Let
look
them
at.
have them in the desk, though. Their stuff.
Mayor,
Well, I don't know, but anyway,
We're not here.
okay, so we're
Mayor,
all on the same page.
Yeah.
if I may elaborate just a little bit, some of the conversation that's occurring, and it's being led by Supervisor Chiesa, is again, a countywide,
Yeah.
everyone kind of getting on the same page, but recreational marijuana has qualified for the November ballot. It's going to be on there, and in all likelihood, it's going to pass.
That's what they're saying.
So there's a couple different things that go on it. Now, the state's going to tax it, but they're going to keep all the money.
Of course.
And we're going to incur all the problems that go along with it. And there's going to be a lot of problems because if you just look at the state of Colorado and Washington, there's a lot of social problems that are going on. And most of the growth that's occurring in terms of the usage are people under 30 when they're, and their young minds are still developing. And that's just something that we don't really need as a country, but that's not really what I'm going after. But so from a county-wide perspective, they're talking about putting something on the ballot that would do a local tax on it as well that would help us deal with it from a law enforcement and a social services perspective. Because if you don't look at it from both pieces, if you just solely from a law enforcement perspective, you're going to miss out on the social services, and you really have to look at it from a two-pronged approach. So that's probably going to be on there. So we're looking at some kind of countywide JPA that could be a taxing authority, and that vote would go on there. The other issue that they're talking about, instead of just outright banning it everywhere in Stanislaus County, because what will happen is they'll just go to our neighboring counties, purchase it there and bring it back, and then we lose the opportunity to generate any kind of resources financially to deal with it on a law enforcement or social services perspective. tax it on a county-wide basis, and then a lot, maybe, I think they're throwing out right now, one dispensary per supervisor's district. So as you know, we have 5 supervisors districts in Stanislaus County. Ours would incorporate Newman, Patterson, and Ceres, which is Supervisor DeMartini's district. And you're right, in all likelihood, it would not, in all likelihood, probably wouldn't select Newman in terms of where that would be located, probably one of the other 2 larger cities. But there would still be a chance that could potentially happen to us, so. But those are some of the conversations that are going on in terms of trying to address all the cities in the county working together to address this on a county-wide effort. And it's not just, again, like I said, not just law enforcement, but also the social services and health services. The first year or two of what was going on in Colorado, there's also not just people that smoke the marijuana, they eat it, and there's edibles, and people, the doses were really crazy, and a lot of people were showing up to hospitals, and there's a lot going on over there. So we need to get together at the county-wide to address this, because it's going to be imposed on us come November 16th. So I think that's what the mayor was looking at.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Because it's like they say, it's not if, it's when, it's because
Right.
it's definitely gonna pass in November.
And we've talked before, most of your beliefs fall on my level, so, yeah, I'm on the same page as you.
Yeah, okay.
We don't want it in our town,
That's right,
not for our youth.
Not in my backyard.
Adults can make that decision, but the youth can't.
yeah. We're Newman.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, with that, I'll ask for adjournment.
Moved, so moved.
Second.
First, okay, all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.